Yep. Tripping with Theobold.
Let's go.
Tripping. Tripping with Theobold.
Come on, Dre.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Tripping with Theobold. I'm your host, Andre Theobold. Welcome to the show. Glad y'all could tune in. Real quick, man, AT is where it's at on most forms of social media, so make sure you follow me. Yeah, we gonna get into it today, man. We gonna talk about this wee man. Oh yeah, we gonna talk about this wee man. I got strong opinions. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I'm not gonna bash it. Let me stop messing around and just go ahead and get right on into it. Right. So, as some of y'all may or may not know, I'm I grew up a He-Man fan. You know, not by choice. That's just what came on TV. He-Man came out in the early '80s, like mid '80s. What's crazy is mid '80s. Mid to late '80s is when I was like, I was in my He-Man. Like that's like the first cartoon that I watched. And those were the first toys that I got. I think I told you on the last episode or previous episode that my mom used to buy all my Masters of the Universe toys, and she hid them in the shower in the basement, and I was too afraid to go. Like she knew I wouldn't go downstairs and look in the shower because I was too afraid of the basement. And one day, a light shone in through from the front door into the bathroom, and I saw a He-Man action figure package on the floor of the shower, and then I opened the shower. I had a mountain of He-Man toys, man. I had, matter of fact, I still got my He-Man toys. I'm going home in a couple weeks, so when I go home, I'm gonna take photos of all my He-Man toys, and I'll probably bring back my Cringer, because as you know, Cringer is my favorite. Or if you don't know, Cringer is my favorite He-Man character. But let's go ahead and just jump in on the movie, man. Let's go and jump in on it, man. So here's the thing, man. I'm trying not to be one of those guys that says, "Hey, you got to do the movie exactly how you did the cartoon," right? Like I'm trying to like really not be one of those guys, and I'm getting better. I'm getting better. But my rule is this, okay? If my rule is if you make new choices that are different from the original version of the cartoon, it better be better. It better be better than the original. I think I said that right. Let me make sure my audio is doing what it's supposed to be doing, man, because I don't like to. I remember one time I was streaming, and man, I didn't man, I was vibing, and my audio was jacked up. Let me just make sure my audio is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Let me make sure my audio is. Yeah, I'm good. Cool. But anyways, man, yeah. So first, let me start with the positives, right? Because I don't want to just sit up here and just be a He-Man basher, you know. But positives, man. Yo, the costume designs and the makeup artists, and the special effects, man. Bravo, man. Y'all, they did their thing, man. Like when I saw the previews, like that's part of what got me, right? Like I saw the previews and I was like, oh, they ain't messing around. Like I looked at what they were doing, or like I saw the green face trap jaw, and you see all the just the little details. I was like, oh yeah, I felt like a little kid watching those commercials again, man. You know? Um, and then what else, man? The casting was dope. All the actors were dope, man. Shout out to all the actors that I think they casted the movie perfectly, so no shade to any of the actors, you know. What else, man? And that's about it, right? Everything else, man, the writing, the writers, Yo, like I'm so like, I'm getting sick of, man. Like I'm getting sick of seeing like my childhood cartoons get brought to the big screen and then have the writing choices be some bullshit. Sorry. You know, the choices like in Masters of the Universe were bad. Not because they didn't stick with the original like cartoon or whatever, but just the choices backed them into a corner. And now it's like, where can you go from here? It's like I feel like the goal was just to get He-Man on the screen as opposed to, hey, let's get a foundational block that we can build off of. And then, but anyways, it looked nice. Like I said, 100%, like it looked nice. But for the choices, man, the writers made bad choices. So let me give you an example, right? Not Let me just tell you what I'm talking about, right? Like for example, um, like Transformers, right? So I will say this: Masters of the Universe was not um as bad as Transformers when it comes from a writing and choices perspective. Because Transformers, man, that really made me sick. Every time I see a new Transformers movie coming out, I get sick to my stomach. Like I feel like a little bit of throw up coming in my mouth. I'm just like, man, just let this shit die. Just let this shit die, reboot it, and let's just rethink what we're doing. So for example, in Transformers, right? One thing that was said by the creators or the writers of the movie or whatever, um, they were like, yeah, we can't have Megatron be a gun because how are we gonna have a Decepticon hold him as a gun? It just won't make any sense. Nigga, it's Transformers, man. You got transforming robots, yo. None of this shit is gonna make like everyday believable sense. So a couple of ideas, you know what I'm saying? A couple of ideas, like one, like they could have like had something where if Megatron gives an order to turn into a gun, and if someone doesn't catch him after the battle, he destroys him, right? That would have been a strong choice, right? And it could have been some comedy, right? Like Megatron could have gave an order to get ready to catch him as a gun, and someone didn't catch him because they were trying to run away or they were too preoccupied doing something else, right? And then Megatron falls on the ground as a gun, then has to retransform, and when they flee, he destroys that Decepticon, right? That's one choice they could have made. Another choice they could have made is they could have had like Megatron have this like mind control thing where if he's in proximity of a Decepticon, he can hop in their mind and then transfer his mind to theirs, and then his body becomes a vessel, you know. And then when he becomes a gun, he shoots a bigger blaster with the gun, right? So there's all, you know what I'm saying? Like, see, use your imagination, right? You got all these writers in Hollywood, and these motherfuckers don't be using they imagination like that, man. You know. See me, I grew up on Muppet Babies, man. And when you grew up on Muppet Babies, man, nothing is impossible. You can make anything work. You can make anything work, man. Anyways, back to Masters of the Universe, right? Um, so let me also say this before I go on, right? What I'm gonna do, man, I'm gonna challenge myself. This is a challenge to myself. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Drake. This is me talking to me, right? But I'm challenging myself to, you know what? For all the trauma that these um cartoons and movie industries have put me through with, you know, making me become a fan of a cartoon and then watching it get brought to the screen and not be like what I think it should be, or because I had like I said, I have high hopes and high expectations. You don't have to do it exactly. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm expecting thought, and you can see the thought just break down throughout the movies. You know what I'm saying? So I'm challenging myself to, what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna write some movie scripts, man. Like I'm gonna rewrite Ghostbusters. I'm gonna rewrite, Transformers. I'm gonna rewrite He-Man. And at first I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna donate it to them so they can go see how, I think. But nah, I'm getting paid off of this, right? Because if I give it to them, they'll probably, like, look, if I give it to them, they'll probably butcher it anyway. So might as well get paid, right? So, anyways, let's go ahead and get on to Masters of the Universe and how, like, just my thoughts on it, right? So, like I said, the um the cinematography, the look and feel, like the details to all of the costumes, the casting was amazing, with the exception of Cringer. I'm doing a separate stream on Cringer because man, they did Cringer dirty. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a whole separate stream on Cringer slash Battlecat. Um, but uh, but man, Jared Leto, man, killed Skeletor, man. He was dope. I think he opened up a new chapter or a new lane for him, man. So shout out to Jared Leto. He killed Skeletor, man. That was a dope performance. And then also, what's messed up is he voiced Skeletor. I didn't realize that he wasn't like the body. Like they had a whole nother dude play Skeletor, and I feel bad I don't know the brother's name, but like I said, the casting, the costumes, the special effects, the set design, like how they made Eternia look, man, that was amazing. But the choices, the writing, let's get into it. Okay, um, so I'm gonna start off with this. Like I said, you don't like they didn't have to do it. I wasn't expecting them to do it exactly like the cartoon, but at least make a better choice than the cartoon, right? So in the cartoon, the beginning of the song for 140 episodes was I'm Adam, Prince of Eternia and Guardian of the Secrets of Castle Grayskull. This is Cringer, my fearless friend. Fabulous secret powers were revealed to me the day I held aloft my magic sword and said, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. Cringer became Battlecat, and I became He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. Psh! Only three others know this secret. Our friends, the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, and Orko. And together, we defend Castle Grayskull from the evil forces of Skeletor. Right? So, probably not the best story, right? You probably can do better, right? But if you notice the intro of the song, right? They said Castle of Grayskull. They said Castle Grayskull 3 times. Magic Sword 1 time, right? So in the movie, they made the choice to put all the power of Castle Grayskull into this sword, right? So basically, they pulled a Man of Steel or Superman, right? Where the Kryptonians put all like they basically um put all that power into Superman, right? So they basically concentrated all the force of Castle Grayskull into this sword. Then uh you had a little young boy that the king wanted to save, right? Or that sire wanted to save, So he had him run to Castle Grayskull, and there was the sword, there's the boy. The sword didn't choose the boy, the sorceress didn't choose the boy. It was just, hey, here's this wormhole, take the sword and just guard it, go away, right? So so you mean to tell me you took all this power and put it in this sword? You took the whole power of Castle Grayskull and put it in this sword. You gave it to a boy, and the boy didn't prove nothing, right? Sword didn't choose him, right? So to me, that was hella weak, you know? That was hella weak, Um, like if they did it the way they did in the cartoon, right? If they did it that way, then basically Castle Grayskull is like paramount, right? And me watching it as a young kid, I'm like, yo, Skeletor and them is up in Castle Grayskull with the sorceress. Nigga, they won. That's checkmate. That's game over. If you watch the cartoon, right? Because in the cartoon, they were struggling to get into Castle Grayskull, and if they got in, they couldn't get to the sorceress, right? So it's either they caught the sorceress or they couldn't. It was either one or the other. Um, so to me, a stronger choice would have been to expound on the secrets of Castle Grayskull. Um, but that's fine. They didn't have to do it that way. Um, Another choice they could have made, writing wise, was the sorceress could have You know, they could have taken the Transformers 86 route, right? Where the sorceress, you know, was gonna basically wield the sword or give it to Duncan, and then and in passing the sword to Duncan, there's like a mishap. Adam grabs it, and then the power, and then basically the sword chooses him unknowingly, and then Duncan gets it, and then can't make the sword do what it do, and that's why the sorceress, and then Orko. They didn't have Orko in the movie, by the way, but whatever. But they could have taken that option. They could have taken that route. You know, another interesting choice they made in the movie was they uh they started him off too young as like a young boy. I think that just wasted a lot of time. Because when they sent him off to Earth accidentally, and this is a joint I saw that I was like, I almost lost my shit. So if you don't know, Adam's mom is from Earth, right? She was an astronaut and she got lost in space, and that's how she ended up on Eternia. Then she couldn't get back to Earth, right? So basically the mom was like, hey, send him to Earth. Like, go back and send him to my hometown. I was like, yo, what the fuck? I was like, yo, it's like if the sorceress, like, if she got to Eternia on accident and wanted to go home, she could have went home anytime, right? So it's like, you see what I'm saying? They just made more of a muck. But anyways, I'm not here to let me just keep going. Let me stay focused. All right. So let's see. So right. So you had the sorceress hand this most prized possession and all the power of Castle Grayskull in this sword, and like you gave it to this boy. Boy ain't proved nothing. And then on top of that, the sorceress didn't even give him instructions on what to do with the sword when he becomes of age. And on top of that, the sorceress in the end came through as a bird and could talk to him when he was in Earth. So basically, what got exposed was, or what the writing choice was, is the sorceress really wasn't that strong, because she should have been able to communicate with Adam on Earth and just told him what to do, right? But to me, a writing choice to me that was messed up was, or an interesting choice was, they started back when they were so young, right? They could have been like in high school, right? And then in high school, you make the jump. Now it's like if Tila comes back, look for you, or you reconnect, you don't have to be like, hey, are you so and so? Oh, wow. Like, you don't have to have that moment of, do you recognize who I am? It's just like waste time, you know? Um, so like I said, interesting choice. I wouldn't have made that choice, as a writer, just because now you've taken away the opportunity for a prequel and what could have been, you know. Um, and in the cartoon, like Skeletor and them, they didn't even know about the sword because He-Man just showed up with the sword, you know. So they didn't. All they knew was that they had this super being that just came around, that just came about, and would just, they couldn't beat, right? So they made it all about the sword, and there's way more to Castle Grayskull than just the sword, right? So fast forward, like I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and continue this trajectory with the sword, right? So then all of a sudden, Adam finds the sword, or gets reconnected with the sword, and he calls on Castle Grayskull, and it sends off a signal, but it's like, yo, it's like, I mean, the source, if you can communicate, and if it can send off a signal, then why couldn't the sorceress give him instructions on how to turn into He-Man and come home, you know? You know what I'm saying? Little shit like that. Um, like my whole analogy that I said earlier, or my whole thing that I brought up before with like Megatron and Transformers, right? The director was like, "Yeah, we decided to leave Orko out because it just wouldn't look realistic. It would look silly." What motherfucker is He Man? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, um, a choice they could have made is they could have had Orko go back with Adam to Earth, right? And then on Eternia, like, really, you can only see Orko. Orko can only be seen on Eternia, but um, on Earth, or really he can only be seen by Eternians. So if you're on Eternia, you can see him. If you're not, and if you're an Eternian, you can see him, right? So you had this element to where you could have made Adam look like autistic or make him look crazy because it's like he's talking to Orko, but Orko doesn't exist to everybody else on Earth, right? That could have been a play that they made, right? Or Orko knows like petty magic, right? Get my words twisted up. Orko knows petty mag, petty. I can't. Why can't I say petty magic? Petty magic, right? Orko knows petty magic, so when he goes to Earth, he could like take on the form of a human, right? That doesn't exist, and he could have been the one that found the sword because because he has vested interest in it, and that's how you bound, the secret. But that's how you can keep the secret between Duncan, um, Orko, and the sorceress. You know what I mean? Um, anyways, they didn't make that choice, and then uh Skeletor broke the sword. Well, Skeletor got it, couldn't use the chant to, you know, become the super champion or whatever it is. Um and then he really didn't want Eternus. He just wanted no one else to have it, you know. Okay. And then if some of y'all know, like, Keldor or Skeletor, his real name is Keldor. He was a blue person or whatever. He's basically Adam's uncle, right? Um, but in the cartoon, right? I don't know what direction they're gonna go here, but um, in the movie, like Skeletor broke the sword and then stabbed Adam with it. And then when he stabbed him with it, the sorceress all of a sudden was like, "Oh, yeah, well, you have the power, right? So, I made you the vessel, right?" So it was like it was just very clunky, man. Uh, first the sword was important, now it's not important, you know, and then you see what I'm saying? It just doesn't like that shit don't line up, right? I felt like they just made choices along the way and tried to make the shit stick as opposed to having a framework for for how to like write all this, right? So right now it's a shaky foundation, right? It's a shaky foundation. Like a lot of people are just happy to see He-Man on the screen, but once you get past seeing He-Man on the screen, people gonna see what they got, and they ain't got much, like because of the writing, um, or because of the choices, I should say, right? Um, what else? Let's get into the identity, man. Right? Um, like they had Tila doing too much heavy lifting in the movie. Like she's definitely a warrior. She's definitely a commander. But it's like she wasn't like she was doing too much. Like they shouldn't have had her. In my opinion, having her come back to Earth to find a sword was an interesting choice. Like that was just an interesting choice because now you see Adam's there, and then now Adam is the one with the sword, and then now it's like you know you're making the choice of it's like now you're making the choice to make He-Man or to make Adam, like basically the way things are set up is Adam is He-Man can never be He-Man, right? Because in the cartoon, once he becomes He-Man, he takes charge, and it's like, yo, I'm here to save the day. I'm not here to like simp over no. That's another thing too, man. They had him simping over like Tila. I'm like, bro, it's like that's not. He's up here simping over Tila. It's like he's basically a super soldier at this point, and He-Man is much more than a super soldier. You know what I'm saying? Um, so just interesting choices, man. Just choices that are just I don't see where you can really go from here. To be honest with you, I really don't know where else you can go. Um, then the whole thing where when he transformed into He-Man, it's like they're still calling him Adam. I'm like, oh, are you serious? Come on, man. Um, the one choice I did like, which was interesting, which I did like, was the choice of him naming the other characters as a kid, right? That was pretty smart. That was clever, because how are these people going to get their names, right? Like we don't know their names. Like we don't know what Randman's or all these guys' real names are like that. But you know, by him like naming Randman and Mechanic and Fisto, right? And don't forget you still got Stratos that hasn't been in the movie yet, right? So all of a sudden, is he gonna remember Stratos from some time ago or whatever, But that wasn't a bad choice. But to me, a stronger choice would have been that is if he appeared as He-Man and and then called him by the names he called him as a child, because then that gives you like it gives you a Shazam effect, right? Where like, okay, well, it's not Shazam, but it's like a Shazam effect where his inner child is like, coming out, but he's a grown man, right? Um a lot of people were mad with the choice of not making him um bulkier or bigger. Um I felt either choice could have worked, right? Like it would have been dope if they went the Revelation or Masters of the Universe Revelation route where you get a puny, like they could have CGI'd the one guy like two ways. I think he's a good actor, by the way. But they could have CGI'd him like two ways, right? Like they could have made him really skinny and really pale, you know. Um, and they could have even like went overboard. They could have made him cross-eyed or something, or gave him a crooked nose, you know, no facial hair or whatever. It would have been funny if they even gave him a bald spot, and like if they made his hairline recede and everything. That would have been like, to me that would have been a low key dope choice. And then when he becomes He Man, it's like you CGI him all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and then you make him like a little more swole than what he was in the movie. Give him hair, give him everything else. That way, people can't say how come Tila doesn't know who He Man is, or how come they don't know the difference between the two, right? That's one way they could have played it. Another way they could have played it, to me, which would have been pretty dope, is you could have had right, you could have had like the armor that He Man wears, right? Like the armor that He Man wears in Battle Cat is part of the magic, right? Where basically it does the same thing as Superman's spectacles, right? A lot of people don't notice. Maybe they do. I don't know. I'm just maybe. I mean, I don't know what people know and don't know, right? But a lot of people thought it was silly that Superman wears glasses and people don't know the difference between him taking the glasses on and off. Well, the glasses basically create an illusion of what he really looks like to everybody else, right? So what they haven't done, um, I don't think they've done it yet in Super. I mean, we know this in the new Superman, right? I think I'm I'm sorry, I'm nerd explosion, right? I'm trying to remember all these facts because I'm seeing things like the way I'm seeing them, right? So um what hasn't been done, and I'm pretty confident hasn't been done, is showing the perspective of what other people see, right? So for example, if we know that Adam is He-Man, right? So we see him the same way, right? And then basically Duncan, and if you had Orko, right, and then the sorceress, they all see what we see. But when Tila sees He-Man, she sees someone totally different, right? Like there's a way to like do that, which would have been novel, right? So to me, that was a choice that they could have made um in the film. Um yeah, like I said, I wasn't a fan at all. Like the whole vibe I got, man, was when he became He-Man, was I got um the greatest American hero, right? So I call this He-Man I call this He-Man or this version of He-Man the greatest American He-Man, right? Because it's like don't get it twisted. Like Greatest American Hero is a classic TV show from the 80s, but it's like they basically made the choice to say they basically made the choice that hey, we're gonna have Adam figure out how to be He-Man while everyone is watching him. So it's like this whole team effort. I'm just like, nah, I'm good. I'm cool on that. Like I said, hopefully what happens is they don't do a part two and then they just reboot it and then because it's gonna take about three reboots to get He-Man the way they want to get it. Because He-Man can be dope. Like I'm not gonna hold you. He-Man can be dope, you know? Um not saying that they have to copy it the exact same way how they did in the cartoon, but just you can make stronger choices to where you have a foundation where you can build off of the shit. Like go on a 5 movie run, you know, not just a shitty like Transformer movie run, but like a 5 epic movie like run, you know. Um, like another thing I want to talk about too is I don't know if you guys feel the way. If you guys feel this way, put it in the chat. But the way I kind of feel is I felt like the movie was trying to say that there's something wrong with masculinity, right? Like, so they're trying to like, so at the very end, they took a poke at it, right? Where they were like saying, oh, He-Man, oh, like, huh, like that's silly, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, oh, okay, let's go ahead and let him go turn into He-Man. So it became like a joke, right? But to me, it's like there's nothing wrong with masculinity, you know? And like when women are in movies and films, it's okay for them to be dainty, but it's like if a man is too masculine, it's like, oh, we gotta like soften them up a little bit, you know? Like because I think a lot of people confuse chauvinism with masculinity, right? And to me, the cartoon now makes a little more sense, which sounds backwards, right? So in the cartoon, we all thought that Adam was like growing up, we all thought Adam was like weak or we thought he was gay because he wasn't into Tila. But really it was an angle you could take is, you know, he knows that once he's He-Man, Tila, you know, um, like falls not I tell you, I don't like to use the word fall in line, but she changes, right? Like when he's Adam, it's like Tila's like kind of annoyed with Adam and, you know, she has to go save him or always has to like look after him. But once he turns into He-Man and she don't know that that's him, you see her just kind of like, you know, it's not like a love story, but you see like, oh, I'm gonna follow suit because this guy is the strongest man in the universe, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But I guess the movie felt like there's a problem with, you know, um, I don't know. That's just the feeling I got from the movie. Like they were trying to like take a jab at or clown masculinity, and to me, this was a an opportunity to say, you know what? Just because you're masculine, right? Yeah, you don't have to be a piece of shit. But at the end of the day, it's like there is order, and when there's order, you know, everyone gets on board. You know, I liked I liked Idris Elba as I liked Idris Elba as Duncan. I thought that was a strong character choice. Um, I felt like him getting drunk and then you know or becoming the drunk old man was an interesting choice. It kind of like I mean, it wasn't a bad choice. It just was different, you know. It added another path to where you had to explain some things, or um, it basically explained why Tila had to come back to Earth, right? And it didn't have to even be Tila, to be honest. Like, I mean, you could have had the sorceress, you know, get in touch with Adam once he found the sword, and then just bring him home, right? But what else? Man, the transformation scene was weak. It was hella weak. Y'all can fight me on this. That shit was weak, man. I mean, special effects were dope, but the music, just the choice to play like mystical, slow music to kind of like slow down the whole um process, or what, or to slow down the whole um process. And then no Cringer. Like I said, I'm gonna do a whole nother live stream on Cringer, man. Cause that's where they missed it. You know? They missed it. You know? Like when I watched the old He-Man transformation from the 80s, and when I watched the transformation in Revelation, like I can't stop watching that thing, man. Like I've watched those transformations probably a million times, yo, because it's just they're just re-energizing, right? And it's like it just gets you hype, you know? And this one in the movie just was like, okay, he's trans okay. Oh, now you're not gonna call him He-Man? Whatever, yo. Yeah. So I was that to me was a big letdown, you know? It's like they got all the little details right, but it's like with the transformation, it was like he had to transform in front of everybody. So now everyone knows that he's He-Man. Right now at the end of the movie, it's like why does he need to even go back to being Adam? Right? Um, like why does he need to go back to being Adam? Right? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like how they did everything. Now it's like him turning into He-Man is like a joke now. It's a joke. It's like he can just stay He-Man the whole time and just stay dressed, right? Like he doesn't even need to be in his loincloth and have the and like have the chest plate. Or he could wear it and put clothes on over top. It's like it's like there's no meaning behind it now. Like they took out the meaning of the transformation. Um, so yeah, so to me it's like they kind of pigeonhole themselves into like there's really nowhere to go after this, because like Skeletor, right? Let's talk about Skeletor, right? The so Skeletor to me was dope throughout the whole movie. The way they did him was amazing. But my criticism with the writing for Skeletor was they made Skeletor um more confrontational than they needed to, right? Because in the cartoons, He-Man ain't I'm in the cartoon, Skeletor ain't fucking with He-Man. He like, yo, if I gotta come face to face with He-Man, he gonna do some magic, but he ain't gonna try to throw no fists, or he not gonna try to go stab He-Man up. He gonna do some magic, he gonna do some tricks, and He-Man gonna get past them tricks, and then Skeletor is gonna be like, "Oh, I've been beat. Let me run. Till next time. Yeah, I'll get you next time." Right? Like that's Skeletor. So now you basically had He-Man or Adam, which sounds weird. You had Adam defeat Skeletor as He-Man, and now Evil Lynn has the skull of Skeletor, and she was abusing him, or he was abusing her through the whole film. Now it's like you have to have a reason to like now you have to have motivation for, or you have to create motivation for Evil Lynn to want to bring He-Man back. I'm sorry, you have to create motivation for Evil Lynn to want to bring Skeletor back, and it's just extra stuff that you have to do now, right? So, um, to me, it's like, yo, if you nailed all, like I said, they nailed all of the small details, like Trapjaw. The way they did Trapjaw was amazing. Like green face, the red, like the way they did Trapjaw, Beastman, Skeletor. And to be honest, like I'm not even mad at how He-Man looked. I'm just mad at how they represented the character, or how they. I'm mad at the writing behind it. Right? I'm mad at the writing for Adam and He-Man. And I thought Adam was dope. And Prince Adam was a dope. That was a dope Adam. Like if you look at like you know just the character, and just the mannerisms, and it was I'm not gonna say believable, but it was a good one off, or it was a good pivot off of the original Adam. But I just felt like they did way too much. Um, they tried to change too much of their foundation to make it fit modern movies, and this was an opportunity where they could have gotten away from that, right? Another thing I'll say too, right, which you know was weak, was the music. He Man is man. He-Man is about, man, say what you want, man. And them 80s cartoons, man, them little soundtracks and them little keyboard, the little synthesizers, soundtracks in the background music, that shit was like, that shit is like epic, man. I'm not saying they had to bring that music back, but the choice of the choice they made of trying to go like with like theatrical music or mute or like, um just the music sound choice that they made to me wasn't um it wasn't like it didn't feel He-Man-ish, you know? Yeah, it just didn't feel He-Man. It just, I don't know. Like the music was yeah. Like to me this Masters of the Universe felt more like it felt more like Thor, like either Ragnarok or like, Love and Thunder. It just felt like it didn't really feel like like to me they should have. So what are the those two dudes that did the keyboard synths for Stranger Things? What are their names? Let me just look it up right quick. Yeah, Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein. I'm not saying they should have gotten Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein to do the score for the movie, but they should have like went with like an untraditional route where they take, excuse me, where they used synthesizers and they used that for the score, right? Because He-Man had some cuts, man. I can't name you the name of the tracks, man, but you know, like you had the action joints, the dun 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 dun. Okay, I'm bugging. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. But when you hear it, you know what I'm talking about. Then you had the boom boom boom. Like, come on, man. Like I'm not gonna I sound like an idiot right now trying to um give you all the little sound tidbits or the background music for the He-Man cartoon. But to me, it's like instead of going with the rocker vibe, they should have went more with the weird 80s synth vibe. That to me would have been the more it should have been up it should have been the weird up tempo synthesizer vibe. Like that would have been like epic, man. It would have just set the movie off different, you know. And then the transformation scene, like I said, was weak. You know, like I don't see how you have a transformation scene with, without Cringer. I could see later on if there was an episode where, after, you done been on so many missions to where we get the point, right? And then you don't need to, or Cringer's just not there. But initially, you gotta have Cringer there initially, man, because there's so much comedy in that. Like I said, I'm gonna talk about that in another live stream, man. Just where they dropped the ball at with Cringer, because that Cringer shit was all marketing, man. I felt stupid, man. Like when I saw the billboard, and I saw the when I saw first when I saw Cringer, I'm like, oh, they're gonna bring Cringer out, okay. And then when I saw the billboards with him in the arm, I'm like, oh, he got the armor on. But man, that shit was a joke, yo, because they made him put it on in the end, but it was like it was a. I'll get into that next live stream. But yeah, all in all, like I said, I mean, I felt like I was teased as a He-Man fan. Like, I felt like, there was so much more that the movie could have been. But like I said, I'm happy to just see like I said, I'm happy that they just put it on the screen. But it's like we got to get past seeing the shit on the screen. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to get to the point to where the stories are just foundational building blocks that you can just build off of, you know? Um there was another point I wanted to make. Um I can't remember the point I wanted to make about Masters of the Universe. So we talked Tila, we talked Beastman, we talked all the other Yeah, we talked about Orko. Like I said, they could have had like there was no excuse not to have Orko. I mean, they had him in the end, you know. But yeah, nah, they just didn't try, you know. Um, but yeah, the transformation scene, and I hate movies have to stop doing this shit, man. But they're trying to make sales, so they're trying to show you like different previews, and they ruin the fucking movie, man. Like when they showed the transformation scene, I was like, oh, this shit weak. Like when I saw it in the commercial, I was like, oh, this shit weak. I was hoping, like I said, I wanted to see what they were going to do with Cringer, but when I saw he wasn't there, I was like, get the fuck out of here. And then at the end, at the end of the movie, they did the whole He-Man laugh thing. You know, that was a good little nod. You know, like I said, my biggest criticism is they paid attention to all the small details, but just got away from the big shit. You know, it was like they were trying to distract us over here with this, and they were really over here doing this. You know, I don't like the hands. Let me just stop doing what I deal with my hands, man. But you know, I'm trying to. You get what I'm trying to do. But yeah, well, like I said, if you haven't seen Masters of the Universe, and if you've never seen He-Man, you'll enjoy it, right? Because it's like it's new to you, right? But to me, it's like I'm watching it just holding my breath, like, oh man. So to me, it's different, right? Because I grew up off of He-Man. It's the first cartoon I watched as a kid, probably the first real cartoon I watched as a kid. You know, yeah. So I think I said everything I need to say, man. Uh, what are your thoughts? Am I just full of shit? If so, put it in the chat. Let me know, or put it in the comments and let me know. Um, but yeah, like I said, I mean, you know, I felt like it was good eye candy. Is that the word I want to use? Um, it was visually nostalgic. How about that? Right? It was visually nostalgic, is what I'll say. But the choices that they made just kind of backed them into a corner to where there's nowhere to really go from here, right? So that's my final assessment on Masters of the Universe. Soundtrack was weak. They could have, I mean, Bear McCreary to me, I mean, I'm not, let me just stop, man. So I'm done ranting on, you know, my criticisms of Masters of the Universe. Like I said, I'm going to challenge myself to write just scripts of my childhood cartoons, you know, or the live action versions. All right, I'm going to challenge myself to write scripts or movies for like my childhood cartoons, man. Because when I see the shit that comes on the screens, I'm just like, oh man, these choices just aren't really good. Anyways, I'm done venting. AT is where it's at on most forms of social media. Let me go. I got to get better at doing this. I need to probably get a little mixer board or something. But yeah, you know, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like I said, AT is where it's at on most forms of social media. And without further ado, let's go. Caliente. Tripping. Yep. Tripping.